The avoidance partner has been gone for months, but their ghost still lingers in every corner of your mind. It shows up in the silence of the night, in the familiar places you once shared, and in the ache that grips your chest whenever their name is mentioned. You tell yourself you're moving on, but deep down you know you're still carrying them inside you. At 2 a.m., you find yourself scrolling through their social media, desperate for signs of their life, even while dreading what you might discover. Every picture feels like a hidden message. Every update becomes an indirect conversation you're still having with them. In your head you replay old conversations and rewrite them with perfect endings, imagining yourself saying the right thing, imagining them staying, imagining a love story that never broke apart. But each morning reality reminds you they pulled away, and you're still haunted. Dating apps offer no escape. Every face you see gets measured against theirs, and no one compares. You visit places you once shared, only to torture yourself with memories that feel sharper than your present reality. It's as if your heart prefers the pain of the past because at least it's familiar. Here's the truth you've been avoiding. You're not just haunted by them, you're haunted by the dream you created with them. You're haunted by the version of yourself that only existed when they were around, by the what-ifs, by the fantasy that never truly lived in reality. That's why letting go feels impossible. It's not simply about losing them, it's about losing the story you wrote in your mind, the illusion that made you believe they could complete you. And here's the turning point: you're not actually missing them, you're missing the fantasy, the imagined version of them who never truly existed. Your mind convinces you that you've lost something irreplaceable, but what you've lost is the illusion you built. You've been grieving not just a person but a dream, a hope, and a part of yourself you believed only existed through them. The prison you feel trapped in has no real walls. It's built on memories you've been feeding. And the moment you stop feeding them, you'll begin to taste the freedom that's been waiting for you all along. Fantasy versus reality. You're not truly attached to the avoidance partner. You're attached to the version of them you created in your mind, a projection that could never live up to the fantasy you built around them. This is one of the cruelest tricks the human psyche plays. We don't fall in love with who someone actually is, we fall in love with who we need them to be. Think about it. You noticed their rare moments of kindness and convinced yourself that was their true nature, while ignoring the countless times they pulled away. You saw glimpses of closeness and told yourself that was proof of their potential, even though the daily patterns painted a completely different picture. You mistook possibility for reality, you confused fantasy for truth. When they pulled back, you didn't just lose a person, you lost the dream of what you believed they could become. You mourned the future you imagined together, the story you wrote in your head, where they finally stayed, finally gave you the love you were waiting for. All the while they were living a completely different narrative, one where you were never truly the center. And here's the harsh truth: the person who hurt you was real, but the one you can't let go of is a creation of your own desperate hope, your unmet needs, and your willingness to accept crumbs of affection while calling it love. You're not heartbroken over losing them, you're heartbroken over losing the illusion. The fantasy feels so powerful because it isn't about them at all, it's about you, it's about the qualities you longed for, the feelings you craved, the safety you imagined they could provide. They were simply the screen onto which you projected all those desires. That's why the grief feels bottomless. You're not grieving reality, you're grieving what could have been, what you wished for, what never actually existed outside your imagination. The first step toward letting go is facing this truth. You can't heal from a ghost. You can't free yourself while clinging to a story that was never real. Once you accept that your attachment is to a fantasy, not to them, you take back the power to break free. Because fantasies don't need closure, they only need recognition that they were never reality in the first place. Projection and idealization. The avoidance partner was never exactly who you thought they were. What you held onto was a projection. A movie playing in your mind where they played the role you desperately needed them to fill. This isn't weakness, it's human psychology. We all project our hopes, fears, and unmet needs onto others, especially in relationships that stir deep emotions. You didn't fall for them as they were, you fell for the image you built of them, the version who would never pull away, the partner who would heal your wounds, the person who would finally prove you were worthy of love. Every rare moment of closeness became evidence for the story you were writing. See, this is who they really are. Every withdrawal you explained away. They're scared, but deep down they care. This is how projection works. It blinds us to patterns and magnifies possibilities. Idealization takes projection further. It turns fragments of behavior into a complete fantasy. You saw a few kind gestures and decided that must be their essence, while dismissing the daily avoidance that actually defined the relationship. You highlighted their potential while minimizing their reality. You convinced yourself that the fleeting moments of affection meant something permanent, when in truth they were only moments, nothing more. This process is powerful because it protects us from pain in the short term. It allows us to pretend we're loved the way we crave, but it also traps us, making it impossible to see the person in front of us clearly. When you project, you're not in a relationship with them, you're in a relationship with your own imagination. The hard but necessary truth is this: you didn't lose the perfect partner you thought they were. You lost the fantasy you created, and fantasies can't be mourned like people, because they never really existed. Recognizing this is the first crack in the illusion, and the first step toward freedom. Permission fantasy. The avoidance partner didn't just capture your heart by accident, they represented qualities you've buried deep inside yourself, qualities your unconscious mind recognized as missing pieces of your own identity. That's why the connection felt magnetic. It wasn't only about them, it was about the parts of you they seemed to unlock. If they were wild and unpredictable, it's because a hidden part of you longs to break free from the controlled, careful existence you've built. If they were confident and demanding, it's because a part of you is tired of being the agreeable one, the person who avoids conflict and bends to keep the peace. If they seemed independent and untouchable, it's because a part of you yearns to stop clinging and start standing firmly on your own. But here's the psychological twist: you didn't truly fall in love with their wildness or their confidence. You fell in love with the fantasy that being with them would give you permission to access those qualities in yourself. You believed that through them you could finally embody the freedom, passion, and strength you've been denying. They became your gateway drug to the person you always wanted to be, but were too afraid to become. This is why letting go feels so impossible. You're not just grieving them, you're grieving the hope that they could complete you, make you whole, give you access to parts of yourself you've kept locked away. Losing them feels like losing the key to your own authenticity. But the painful irony is that the very qualities that attracted you were already inside you. They weren't your missing piece, they were only a mirror, reflecting your disowned potential back at you. The lesson isn't that you need someone else to activate those traits, it's that you need to stop hiding them from yourself. The freedom you admired, the strength you envied, the confidence you craved, those qualities belong to you. The partner who hurt you simply revealed what you've been too afraid to claim. Once you realize this, their power over you fades, because you see that what you wanted wasn't them, it was you. Dependency versus love. One of the most painful realizations is that what felt like love was often something else entirely: emotional dependency. The avoidance partner didn't just hold your heart, they held your sense of worth. Your happiness rose and fell with their texts, their moods, their attention. When they leaned in, you felt alive. When they pulled away, you felt like you were dying. This wasn't love, it was dependency. Real love adds to your life while allowing you to remain whole. It doesn't require you to sacrifice your identity or abandon your needs. Love thrives on respect, consistency, and truth. Dependency, on the other hand, consumes you. It replaces your identity with anxious obsession. Instead of living as yourself, you live as a reflection of their behavior. Dependency whispers lies. If they validate me, I'm enough. If they ignore me, I'm worthless. It convinces you to outsource your self-esteem to someone who has already shown they cannot handle it with care. This is why you felt so powerless, because you handed them control of your emotional state. The tragedy of dependency is that it feels like love in the moment. The intensity of the highs and lows tricks your nervous system into believing this must be special. But intensity is not intimacy. Anxiety is not passion. Fear is not connection. Dependency thrives on instability, while love thrives on security. Understanding this difference is crucial. Love allows two people to stand as whole individuals, choosing each other freely without control or manipulation. Dependency keeps you chained to someone else's behavior, making your self-worth conditional on their attention. The partner who hurt you wasn't your soulmate. They were the mirror reflecting how much of your identity you've been willing to hand over. The pain you feel now isn't just about losing them, it's about realizing how much of yourself you abandoned in the process. And that realization, as sharp as it feels, is also your first step toward reclaiming your freedom. Addictive loop and pattern origins. The dependency you felt with the avoidance partner wasn't just emotional, it was chemical. Your nervous system had been trained to crave the unpredictable cocktail of anxiety, relief, hope, and disappointment they stirred inside you. Just like an addict chasing their next fix, your brain kept reaching for the unpredictable rhythm of their attention. Pain mixed with pleasure became your drug. That's why leaving felt like emotional suicide. You weren't only saying goodbye to them, you were breaking an addiction. Your body had wired itself to believe that love and suffering were the same thing, that intimacy must come with fear, that connection always carried the risk of abandonment. These associations didn't form overnight, they were carved into your mind long before this relationship, through childhood experiences, family dynamics, and earlier attachments. Chaos feels like home when chaos was your first teacher. If love in your earliest memories came with unpredictability, rejection or inconsistency, then part of you learned to associate instability with connection. That's why you keep attracting variations of the same person wearing different faces. The names and circumstances change, but the emotional dynamic remains eerily familiar, you shrinking them withdrawing, you chasing them avoiding. This isn't coincidence, it's repetition. It's your unconscious mind trying to resolve unfinished business from the past, recreating the same conditions in hopes that this time, the ending will be different. But it never is, because you can't heal old wounds with the same consciousness that created them. The avoidance partner wasn't the first to make you feel small, uncertain or unworthy of consistent love. They were simply the latest echo of a pattern that began long before them. And until you recognize this loop for what it is, you'll keep stepping into the same emotional prison with different cellmates, wondering why love always feels like a battlefield where you're destined to lose. Awareness is the first key. Once you see that you've been addicted to a cycle rather than a person, you can finally begin the work of breaking free. Detach and integrate. Breaking free from the avoidance partner isn't about running away from them, it's about creating space for yourself. As long as they remain the center of your thoughts, your nervous system can't recalibrate. Detachment begins with boundaries, both physical and digital. Delete their number, unfollow or mute their social media. Avoid the places where you're likely to run into them. These aren't acts of weakness, they're acts of self-protection, a way to stop feeding the addiction. Once you've created distance, the next step is integration. The qualities you admired in them, freedom, confidence, independence, aren't theirs alone. They're reflections of traits you've denied in yourself. Now is the time to reclaim them. Journaling can help you hear your own voice again, free from their interruptions. Exercise reconnects you to your body, reminding you that you are more than the weight of their mixed signals. Equally important is learning to feel your emotions without needing their participation. Allow yourself to experience anger without waiting for them to understand. Let yourself grieve without hoping they'll care. Practice joy in ways that don't depend on their presence. These small acts of emotional independence rebuild the connection you lost with yourself. Integration also means setting new standards for how you allow people to treat you. Every boundary they crossed revealed one you hadn't set. Every broken promise highlighted how often you compromise your own values. Now is the time to decide, never again. Detachment isn't about forgetting them, it's about remembering yourself, your worth, your needs, your voice. With each boundary enforced and each quality reclaimed, you step closer to freedom and further away from the illusion that once trapped you. Healthy template. Choosing better to build the kind of love you truly deserve. You need a new template for relationships. Stop settling for connections where you do all the reaching out, all the emotional labor, all the forgiving. Healthy relationships don't drain you, they sustain you. They feel balanced because both people are equally invested, equally communicative, and equally respectful of boundaries. In healthy love, you don't shrink to fit someone else's comfort zone, you expand. You don't walk on eggshells wondering how they'll react, you walk confidently, knowing that honesty will be met with respect. The right person won't punish you for your humanity or make you feel like you're too much or not enough. They'll meet your energy, reciprocate your care, and value your presence without conditions. The ultimate freedom isn't just letting go of the avoidance partner, it's letting go of the part of yourself that believed you had to accept less than you deserve. It's saying goodbye to the version of you that thought love required self-abandonment. This liberation clears the space for something better, relationships built on authenticity, reciprocity, and peace. Remember, your attachment to them was never really about them. It was about what they represented in your journey towards self-discovery. Now that you see this clearly, you no longer need their presence to continue your growth. Every day you choose yourself over the urge to reach out, every time you resist checking their social media, every moment you invest in your own healing, you are wiring your brain for freedom. The pain of letting go is temporary. The freedom that follows is permanent. They were never your missing piece, they were only a mirror, and now you get to reclaim every piece of yourself you once gave away.